today, as a technical architect, my main goal is to ensure that we are going to deliver the feature the customer wants successfully in his platform, and it is going to be integrated well.
That is Sébastien Colladon, a technical architect for Salesforce over in France. I'm Josh Birk, a developer evangelist for Salesforce, and here on the Salesforce Developer Podcast, you'll hear stories and insights from developers for developers. Today, we sit down and talk with Sébastien about a very specific project that he's been working on, which is a series of templates for Postman. And all of this work is going to make integration and testing much easier for you. But let's start at the beginning. What exactly is Postman?
Oh, Postman. Postman is a tool that allows you to simulate or to play HTTP call. So you're able to call web services with it. You can configure the web service and you can have the result of the execution of this web service. And this is basically what it does, but it comes with a lot of handy feature, like, for example, environment switching, code generation, and collection organization of your call you have built, all those kind of stuff that are very handy for collaboration working and designing of integration.
And if I'm working with Salesforce, why would I use something like Postman over something like Workbench?
If you want to use Postman instead of Workbench, this is basically just to be able to store the design of your integration. For example, if you ask to provide a way to call a web service for an external application, you're going to be able to build it in Postman and test it. And then you are going to be able to share it and come back to it easily because it is stored in a collection. Plus, you will be able to quickly switch your environment, which is not very possible easily with Workbench. Workbench, you are connected to one environment. If you want to go to another, you need to connect to the other environment also and to rebuild the call you have built in the previous one. Another key feature between Workbench and Postman is that Postman allows you to call authentication endpoints, which is not the case with Workbench, because when you are on Workbench, you are already authenticated into the environment you are targeting.
Got it. And so that kind of goes right into what your project is really about. Your project is like a collection of templates. Can you kind of describe what's in your repo?
So what's in the repo is basically a collection with a lot of API calls. They are structured per API. So we have authentication, we have bulk API v1, bulk API v2, the REST API, the metadata API, the tooling API. And it comes also with a preset for the headers you need, because depending on the API you are going to call, some errors are present or not. And it comes also with a boilerplate for the environment you need. This way, if you duplicate this environment, you are able to configure it to target another sandboxes, and you will be able to switch between environments very easily.
And how many templates do you have in there right now?
I think it's about 190, something like that.
So just under 200.
100, under 200.
So that's a lot of different templates. What are some examples of specific ones that are in there?
For example, we have for the REST API, there is a lot, because there is a lot of describe you can do, or a subject relationship you can go through. But basically, this is structured per type of API. So we have metadata, REST, tooling, bulk API, V1, V2, chatter API, composite API, all that kind of stuff.
Nice. And so give me an example of how you would use one of these, a template of these requests, like in your day-to-day life.
So what I can... what I will try to explain to you is another use case than the one that is in the blog post, and it is a more recent one also. Like recently, I needed to tune the bulk API v1 one of my customers do, and the bulk API v1 he has is a very complex orchestration. It means it's going to load different kind of objects and with different kind of pace or configuration. And the goal was to tune it very well. So all the calls are not tuned the same way. And in order to be able to gather data around how the bulk API behave with this kind of data, this kind of custom object, we needed to split the work in a team. So what I did, I just created a workspace in Postman, put it the API calls we needed for the bulk API, and we just splitted the work. Everyone duplicates the collection and just configure the bulk API to call the object they were assigned to. And then we gather the result with the same template, and we will be able to tune we have been able to tune the bulk API v1 for this customer very, very fast and very, very easily and collaboratively.
Nice. So it's interesting, the collaboration angle on that. Like, you can take a little bit of information and a lot of people can replicate the same kind of integration that you're doing. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, exactly. Once you have done the endpoint, you can export it and you can share it, and then everyone is able to replay it in his own environment, but you can replay the exact call you have configured.
And you can also handle authentication across different kinds of work, so you can handle that integration, whether it's in a sandbox or a scratch org or production. Yeah,
exactly. You can target a sandbox, a scratch org, a production environment. You can target a Twilight playground if you want. So you can target anything that is on Salesforce.
Nice. And this is all open source and online, correct?
Yeah, correct. This is hosted by Github, and this is open source.
Well, and I think this is an interesting use case of open source, because it's not just about, getting bug fixes and features into a project. This is also about expanding the collection for different kinds of templates, right?
Yes, right. At first, all of the current templates were not present. I think I started with the REST API, but with all the use cases I have been through, I have improved the template, and I hope this template will be improved more and more with the community growing.
Were there any particular challenges that you ran into when you started putting this together, or does Postman just kind of make this pretty boilerplate?
Yes, I think with Philippe, we have encountered the same challenge that you face everywhere. This is how you name your variables. And yeah. This is very funny, but this is in fact a very complicated problem for software engineers. And I think everyone knows that we actually have done, I think, like 2 or 3 meetings talking about that, just to be sure to how we are going to name our variable.
So walk me through that. What were some variable names that didn't make it in, and then what did you end up actually using?
So first thing, we needed to identify different kind of types of variables, and then we decided to put some naming convention about all those type of variables. And we tried to follow some general guidance about this type. This is how we've been thinking. And at the end, the result is that we have 3 types of variables. We have user variables that are set by the user. And those variables follow the camel case case. We have also the system variables. Those system variables are set by the system when you are doing a call. Typically, when you are calling an authentication, the authentication is going to gather the access token and set it for you. So when you're going to call another template, the access token will be put in the header for you, and the call will go smoothly without authenticating first, because it has been done before. So those kind of information is stored into a system environment variable. And those variables follow camel case starting with an underscore convention. This is close to the private variable in JavaScript.
Gotcha.
And then we have what we call placeholder. Placeholder are some variables that are not into the environment template. They are directly into the endpoint. And this is where you're going to change the value of this boilerplate. For example, if you want to ask the REST API to give you a describer for object, we are not going to duplicate all this code for every object, because it will be huge. And in fact, it will be also incomplete, because any customer can create a custom object which I can't know before. I can't know in advance.
Right. And that's our show. I want to thank Sébastien for his hard work on this project, and I hope you've enjoyed this short introduction into his efforts. Now, of course, in the show notes, we will be linking to that project, as well as a blog post that was co-authored with Philippe Ozil on how to get started with it. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to learn more about this podcast, head on over to developer.salesforce.com/podcast, where you can hear old episodes, see the show notes, and have links to your favorite podcast service. I'll talk to you next week.